Shock, silence, disbelief. That's what rippled across the wrestling world the moment the news broke. Dave Bautista, known to millions as Batista, the Animal, one of the most dominant and respected superstars to ever step inside a WWE ring, has passed away. A legend, a Hollywood star, a man who fought his way from the streets to superstardom, gone just like that. And for fans, friends, and family, the grief is unbearable. Nobody saw it coming. Batista was more than just another superstar, he was an era. He wasn't just muscle, wasn't just the powerhouse of Evolution, wasn't just the six-time world champion who went toe-to-toe with Triple H, Undertaker, John Cena, and Randy Orton. He was an inspiration. He was proof that no matter where you came from, no matter what obstacles you faced, you could carve out greatness with hard work, sacrifice, and heart. But now, the world is mourning, and no tribute hit harder, no words carried more weight than those of Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, a Hall of Famer. A brother-in-arms who lived that grind side by side with Batista. Mark Henry's voice broke with emotion as he remembered his fallen friend. "This one hurts," he said. Batista wasn't just a partner, wasn't just a rival, wasn't just a co-worker. He was family. And family doesn't die. Family lives on through every moment, every memory, every fan who ever believed in him. You could feel the weight in Henry's words. This wasn't just about losing a colleague. This was about losing a brother, a warrior, a man who left pieces of himself in every match, every storyline, every single night he stepped through the curtain. And let's not downplay it, Batista's career was legendary. From his early days as Deacon Batista, standing at Reverend Devon's side, to his meteoric rise in Evolution, he was destined for greatness. When he finally broke free, when he powerbombed Triple H and stood on his own, the WWE Universe exploded. From that night on, Batista wasn't just part of the show, he was the show. He headlined WrestleManias. He dethroned icons. He reinvented what it meant to be a powerhouse in WWE. And even after wrestling, when he made his leap to Hollywood and became Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy, he never forgot his roots. He never forgot the fans who screamed Batista. Batista, at the top of their lungs. But behind the fame, behind the stardom, Batista was human. And that's what Mark Henry reminded us of. He told stories that pulled back the curtain, the laughter in the locker room, the quiet moments on the road, the deep talks about life beyond the ring. Batista wasn't just a performer, he was a man who cared, who gave, who fought battles none of us ever saw. And now, tragically, he's gone. The outpouring from the wrestling world has been overwhelming. Superstars, past and present, have taken to social media to share their pain. Triple H wrote, "I lost a brother today. Dave was larger than life in every way. His impact will be felt forever." John Cena posted simply, "Thank you, Dave. I love you." Randy Orton, visibly shaken, said Batista's passing left a hole that can never be filled. But the words that cut deepest came from Mark Henry. He was an animal in the ring, but outside it, he was one of the kindest souls I ever knew. WWE lost a legend. The world lost a star. And I lost a brother. The shockwaves from the announcement of Batista's passing weren't limited to the WWE universe. The ripple effect reached every corner of the wrestling business, and soon, tributes began to pour in from legends, icons, and peers who had shared the ring, the locker room, and the road with the Animal. One of the most powerful voices in the room of grief belonged to none other than Mark Henry, a man who not only fought against Batista in the squared circle but also shared years of respect and brotherhood behind the scenes. Mark Henry's tribute was not just a few kind words, it was raw, emotional, and it cut deep into the very heart of wrestling fans. On his show, Henry broke down while trying to explain what Batista meant to him personally. His voice cracked as he described Batista as more than just a co-worker. Batista was a brother, a man who fought tooth and nail to make it in the business, and someone who never once forgot where he came from. Henry revealed moments the public had never seen, moments that defined the true character of Batista. He spoke about long nights on the road, driving through endless highways after grueling shows, Batista often being the one to keep the mood light, cracking jokes or talking about his love for his family. Henry said Batista's quiet presence carried weight. He wasn't the loudest in the locker room, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Because when Batista spoke, it came from the heart. And Henry didn't stop there. He went into detail about Batista's battles, not just inside the ring with icons like The Undertaker, Triple H, and John Cena, but battles within himself. Batista wasn't always the confident powerhouse we saw on TV. Henry recalled the self-doubt Batista faced early in his career, how people backstage doubted if he had what it took, and how Dave kept pushing forward despite all odds. The tribute became even more gut-wrenching when Henry revealed one of his last private conversations with Batista. According to Henry, Batista had told him he still felt like he had unfinished business with wrestling, not in terms of championships or glory, but in giving back to the younger generation. Batista wanted to mentor, to guide, to be the man that others had been for him. Hearing that now, in the wake of tragedy, hit fans like a sledgehammer. Fans around the world immediately took to social media, echoing Mark Henry's words and sharing their own tributes. Hashtags like #ThankYouBatista and #AnimalForever trend worldwide within hours. But what truly made Henry's tribute so heartbreaking was the raw authenticity. This wasn't a corporate scripted eulogy. This was pain. This was love. This was a brother saying goodbye to another brother far too soon. And if Henry's words weren't enough, the WWE locker room began opening up as well. Superstars like Randy Orton, Rey Mysterio, and John Cena each shared stories that painted Batista not just as the animal but as Dave the man who cared deeply about those around him. Fans, however, began demanding answers. The grief quickly transformed into frustration, into anger. How could this happen? Why Batista? Why now? And as Mark Henry's tribute went viral, questions about Batista's final days began to surface. What was happening in his life leading up to this tragedy? Mark Henry's tribute didn't just stop at words spoken in a trembling voice. He wanted to take action. He wanted the WWE Universe to feel the impact of Batista's life the same way he did. And so, behind the scenes, Henry started speaking with Triple H, with Shawn Michaels, and even with Vince McMahon about doing something unprecedented, a full-scale Batista memorial event. Not just a 10-bell salute, not just a highlight package, but an entire night dedicated to celebrating the animal. Because Henry knew one thing: Batista's story wasn't about his wrestling moves, it was about his fight to become something greater than himself. And he deserved every ounce of honor. But here's where it gets messy, because while Henry was pouring his heart into preserving Batista's memory, whispers started surfacing online. Fans began to question the suddenness of Batista's passing. How did this happen so quickly? He was just seen training last week. He looked fine. The rumors grew darker. Some claimed he had been under immense stress, others said he'd been betrayed by people he trusted. And in the middle of all this chaos, Mark Henry found himself caught in the storm. Because while he was grieving, others were accusing. And nothing can rip a man's soul apart faster than watching people twist the legacy of someone he loved into a conspiracy theory circus. And yet Henry never broke. Instead, he doubled down. On live television, he stared straight into the hard camera and said, "If any of you dare question Batista's legacy, you question me. And I promise you, that's a fight you don't want." The crowd erupted. Fans cheered, others cried. Henry wasn't just speaking as a wrestler, he was speaking as a brother. And for the first time in years, the WWE Universe felt that unshakable bond between two warriors who had shared the blood, sweat, and tears of battle. But let's not sugarcoat this. The backstage atmosphere was fractured. Some superstars didn't know how to react. Randy Orton, who had once been Batista's closest ally in Evolution, was strangely quiet. Too quiet. And that silence began to feel louder than any tribute. People asked, where was Orton? Why wasn't he speaking? Why wasn't he honoring the man who helped carry Evolution to glory? And this silence only made Mark Henry more suspicious. Because Henry knew when someone says nothing at all, sometimes it's because their guilt is too heavy to put into words. Meanwhile, the tributes kept pouring in. John Cena posted a heartbreaking message, calling Batista a pillar of strength and resilience. Rey Mysterio, his longtime friend, broke down crying on an Instagram Live. But nothing compared to the moment Henry walked into the ring, held up Batista's old chain necklace, and placed it on the turnbuckle. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The image itself told a story of two men who fought wars inside the ring, but built a bond outside of it that no death could erase. And yet, the unanswered questions lingered. Fans couldn't shake them. How could Batista, the man who looked indestructible, be gone just like that? And why was Mark Henry so adamant about silencing speculation? Did Henry know more than he was letting on? Did he see something, hear something, sense something that the rest of us couldn't? Because if there's one thing we know about this business, it's that nothing happens in isolation. And behind every tragedy, there's always a shadow lurking just out of sight. So when Henry stood tall, tears still in his eyes, and whispered into the mic, "This ain't the end. This is just the beginning of his story," the WWE Universe froze. What did he mean by that? Was he hinting at a memorial? Was he talking about keeping Batista's name alive through documentaries, through legacy matches, through stories told by his brothers? Or was there something deeper, something darker that Henry was preparing us for? Because let's be honest, every word, every tear, every silence was loaded with a weight that felt bigger than grief alone. And that's the part that hurts the most. Because while the world mourned, while Mark Henry held his brother's memory high, the seeds of suspicion and conflict were already being planted backstage. And if you think this tragedy was going to bring everyone closer, you're wrong. This was only the beginning of something much, much bigger. The locker room atmosphere in WWE following Batista's passing has been described as something almost otherworldly, like a cloud of grief lingering over every hallway, every arena, every gym where his presence was once felt. Wrestlers who normally thrive on banter, adrenaline, and intensity suddenly find themselves in quiet reflection. A man who once walked those very halls with his massive frame and even bigger charisma is no longer there. and the silence is deafening. Triple H reportedly told close associates that Batista wasn't just the animal, he was a brother. Their storied rivalry, their countless matches, their shared journeys from Evolution to WrestleMania moments, they weren't just storylines. They were real bonds, tested under fire, strengthened through struggle, and celebrated in victories. Triple H admitted privately that the news shattered him in a way he hadn't expected, not because death isn't a part of life, but because Batista seemed untouchable, like one of those rare forces of nature who could defy time itself. And then there's the fans. Thousands gathered outside arenas across the country holding candles, chanting, "Thank you, Batista," over and over again. Social media exploded with tributes, stories, and even rare behind-the-scenes footage that fans had held onto for years. Videos of Batista meeting kids at Make-A-Wish, comforting young fans fighting illnesses, or simply sharing moments of laughter backstage are now being reshared millions of times. To so many, Batista wasn't just a performer. He was proof that you could rise from nothing, face rejection, and still carve your name into history with resilience and heart. Mark Henry, still reeling from his own emotions, has become one of the most vocal figures in honoring Batista's legacy. In a sit-down interview, Henry broke down in tears, recalling how Batista once supported him during one of the lowest points of his life. When Henry doubted his future in WWE, when the critics were at their loudest and the hate felt unbearable, Batista sat with him and said, "You don't owe anyone an explanation. You are Mark Henry, the world's strongest man. And if they can't see it, I'll make them see it." Those words didn't just motivate Henry. They reignited his fire, leading to his legendary Hall of Pain run that fans still talk about to this day. Other superstars have chimed in. John Cena, Batista's rival-turned-respected peer, released a statement describing Batista as a rival I never wanted to admit I admired, and a man whose strength went beyond muscles. Randy Orton called him a brother in arms and shared a story of Batista taking him under his wing during their Evolution days, reminding him to stay grounded when fame threatened to consume him. The tributes aren't just from wrestlers either. Hollywood has shown its grief. Batista, who reinvented himself as a global star through roles like Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, left an indelible mark on the film industry too. James Gunn, the director who gave Batista his breakout role, posted a heartfelt message, "There was no one like Dave. Behind the muscles was a man with more kindness, empathy, and honesty than most people could ever hope to have. I am devastated." What makes this tragedy cut even deeper is how sudden it was. Batista had spoken just weeks before about his plans for the future projects he wanted to pursue, charities he wanted to expand, and even a desire to return to WWE in some capacity, not as a competitor, but as a mentor to the younger generation. He wanted to give back, to ensure that the business he loved so much continued to thrive with new stars who understood the grind and sacrifice. That vision has now been cut short, and the what could have been lingers in every conversation. Behind the scenes, WWE management is already planning a massive tribute show in Batista's honor. Rumors suggest it won't just be a typical memorial episode, it will be something far grander. Talks of dedicating an entire pay-per-view to Batista's legacy are reportedly on the table, complete with video packages, interviews, and matches themed around his career-defining moments. Vince McMahon himself, usually stoic and rarely seen addressing emotions publicly, is said to have broken down upon hearing the news. He referred to Batista as a once-in-a-lifetime talent who proved himself not only as a superstar but as a human being. The heartbreak has gone global. From Manila to Madrid, from Cameroon to Canada, fans are holding their own tributes. Massive murals of Batista are being painted across city walls. Wrestling schools are dedicating matches in his memory. Entire gyms are holding charity events under the banner "Train like Batista" to honor his relentless work ethic. His legacy isn't just tied to the squared circle, it's embedded in culture, in motivation, and in the lives of people who saw him as a symbol of what hard work and determination could achieve. And still, in the middle of all this grief, there's anger. Anger that such a man, who gave so much, who inspired millions, could be taken away so suddenly. Fans are demanding answers. How? Why? What really happened? WWE officials have remained tight-lipped, only saying that Batista's passing was due to unforeseen circumstances. That secrecy has fueled speculation, conspiracies, and debates across the wrestling world. Was it health-related? Was it stress from his grueling schedule? Or was it something darker that no one is ready to speak on yet? What cannot be denied is this: Batista's death has created a void that can never truly be filled. Legends come and go, icons rise and fall, but few leave behind the kind of emotional earthquake that Batista has. Mark Henry's tribute, filled with tears, laughter, and gratitude, will be remembered as one of the most genuine testaments to who Batista really was, not just the animal, not just the Hollywood star, but the man. And as the world prepares for WWE's official tribute, the question remains, how does the company move forward without Batista's looming presence? Can wrestling ever feel the same again when one of its fiercest warriors, and kindest souls, is no longer here to roar? The silence that surrounded the WWE locker room after the announcement of Batista's passing was unlike anything the business had seen before. For decades, this was a place of adrenaline, loud music, and intensity. But now, It was heavy. Every corner of that room carried an energy of loss. Even the toughest, most battle-hardened superstars looked broken, because they all knew Batista wasn't just a colleague, he was family. Mark Henry, once again, stepped up in front of the roster. And with tears streaming down his face, he said something that silenced the room completely. We all owe our careers, in some way, to Dave Batista. If you wrestled with him, against him, or even just studied him, he left something with you. That man gave his entire soul to this business. And tonight, I want us to honor him the way he deserves. The entire locker room rose to their feet, clapping, stomping, and chanting Batista's name until the walls shook. It was raw. It was real. And it was proof that even though he was gone, his legacy would never die. Clips began circulating online: Batista's entrance at WrestleMania 21, his dominance and evolution, his wars with The Undertaker, John Cena, and Triple H. Fans posted their favorite moments: the thumbs down to Randy Orton, the Batista bomb that destroyed countless opponents, the night he stood on the turnbuckle with fireworks exploding behind him. Social media flooded with one phrase over and over again: "Thank you, Batista." And then came the tribute video on Raw. The opening shot was simple: Batista's music hitting, the crowd screaming, and his larger-than-life presence filling the screen. WWE played it all: his rise, his battles, his victories, and his iconic goodbyes. But the most gut-wrenching part came at the end of the video. The camera faded to a shot of Batista standing on the stage one final time, raising his arms, fireworks behind him, and the words appeared: Dave Batista, 1969 to 2025. A true icon. Forever. The crowd in the arena chanted, "Thank you, Batista," louder than ever before, and many fans, even the commentators, couldn't hold back their tears. Mark Henry was the one to close out the tribute. He stood in the middle of the ring, microphone in hand, his voice trembling but strong. "I lost a brother. We all lost a brother. But Batista's not gone. Because every time we step in this ring, every time we fight, every time we push through the pain, we'll remember him. Dave was strength. Dave was heart. Dave was family. And the animal will never be forgotten." The fans roared in approval, some crying, some screaming, but all united. That's the power Batista had. That's the mark he left. Because legends never really die. And Batista? He was more than a legend, he was a force of nature. A man who clawed his way to the top, fought through pain, carved his name into history, and gave every ounce of himself to the fans. Even in death, Batista remained what he always was in life: unforgettable.